Hello, homies, and welcome back to Homeopathy Hangout, where today we don't have just one, but we've got two incredible guests, the lovely Bridget Biscotti Bradley and my bestie Sarah Valentini. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so excited that we can have this chat because the two of you are doing amazing things with the School of Intuitive Homeopathy and Homeopathy Hive. And we're going to dive into all of that. But firstly, I'm a sucker for origin story. And Sarah, we've had you on the podcast lots. So I'm going to ask the lovely Bridget if she can share with our audience, what's your origin story? How did you find homeopathy?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So my father was a family practice physician. So I grew up firmly in the world of Western medicine, but as an adult, quickly gravitated towards holistic medicine, herbs, started using homeopathy on my own as a young adult, and then didn't have my first child until I was 36. And at that point, I was, using it, dabbling in it here and there. And then my first child ended up exhibiting symptoms of PANS when he was 5. And I immediately wanted to use homeopathy, but I was also using herbs at the time. And it was really difficult for him to handle the herbs and really any of those protocols. And so after working with some ND specialists in mold toxicity illness, which is what his first diagnosis was, realizing that we just weren't getting anywhere. His little body just couldn't handle any of those medicines. And so I quickly left that, started to study homeopathy on my own, treat him myself, and that's how we ended up healing him. So, yeah, it was a long way around from growing up in one modality and embracing another. And once I saw what it did for my kid, I just couldn't keep that to myself. Had to just keep going and help others.
Wow. When you say you did the homeopathy yourself, can you just like explain a little bit? So what were you doing?
I'm a big believer in this, and this is part of what we do at the Hive. I really feel that mothers should be empowered. I was, working on healing my son and working with doctors who, you would explain to them as, my mother's intuition is saying that my child cannot handle this or this dosage. And they would just say, well, don't come back until you can do it. If you can't get in 5 drops this month, then, keep going. I have no respect, for your opinion as a mom. And I think that's perhaps growing up with doctors and knowing that they're just people like everyone else. I didn't have that thing where, oh, you're a doctor, and so whatever you say is right. I always thought, no, my opinion matters here. And so I do really feel that moms are the best healers for their own children. You know your kid the best. You're still cellularly connected to that child. And the more you can learn it, from someone obviously working in partnership with a homeopath. I've always been a DIY kind of person, so I did have a homeopath at the very beginning of our journey, but I really wanted to do it myself. So I started studying at the School of Intuitive Homeopathy and then at Lotus and other places, and just, soaked up everyone's wonderful information and incorporated it into what I wanted to do for him because I felt like I knew him best.
Wow. How did you find the School of Intuitive Homeopathy and what's your journey been like there?
I think it was on Facebook or something like that. I have a hard time remembering exactly how I found it, but I saw something about the classes starting up. This was, gosh, I don't know, 8 years ago, a long time ago now, and just started doing it. And after the first class, I thought this is exactly where I want to be. Yeah, it
Wow.
was just an instant knowing that this was wonderful.
Amazing. I didn't know that it's been going that long. Sarah, when did you guys, because you started it?
Yeah, we started at the same time. It was 6 or 7 years ago. I don't know. Must be.
7, because this is our fifth year at Homeopathy Hive.
Wow.
And
Oh,
so
yeah, it
it was
must have
like
been
8, yeah,
2018,
I
I
think
think.
so. 17, 18 January, I think.
Something like
Anyway,
that.
yeah.
And I was like one of the only homeopaths actually who did
Mhm.
that at the time. But I was like blown away by the parents like Bridget, who had so much insight and so much knowledge and so much experience. We can learn this from the outside, even though I have complex kids. We can learn this. I still learned all of this initially through my homeopath. I was already a homeopath. I'd been a homeopath for 8 years or something already. And there's a different understanding. But when I just loved getting, people like Bridget and some of the other amazing people who are now working in Homeopathy Hive, the mums who were just like so knowledgeable and so observant of their kids, like when strep would flare and they would see all this stuff. And it was really, it was almost like creating the materia medica for the nosodes in watching and through experience and cured cases, which is pretty amazing. And so that I was just like, wow, this is like, it's such a full kind of education. And these parents are really impressive. And now they're homeopaths, but yeah.
That's incredible. So initially it was just for mums and then you joined as well, which is pretty amazing that you can say, Sarah, as a homeopath that because you had some pretty serious homeopathic training, probably some of the best that I've heard of. And for you to say that you're still learning, from these mums that are like learning homeopathy
Yeah.
is actually incredible. So was that kind of
Yeah.
the original idea of it was for mums to learn how to, I mean, it's kind of same concept by the sounds of it as Angelica's book, Healing Complex Kids. But then because I know of other homeopaths that have done her course as well.
Yeah. I think originally Angelica had some mums in her practice and they wanted to learn homeopathy and they asked her
Ah,
to teach them, and that's how it started for her.
mm,
And so she started teaching them. And when I joined, like I just wanted, in Australia there wasn't much going on in this area, but I had already started to learn about pans and pandas. And then Angelica had this experience and I was like, well, I'm going to go and, see what she's going to say. And then I was kind of like, I said to her, is this going to be okay for me? Because I'm already a homeopath. And she was like, just come along and see. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, this is great. This is all in the context. So
and
it was fabulous. And
Yeah.
then also learning, and I think as well, like Bridget was saying, empowering parents and all of that stuff, letting those parents have a voice. That's still an ongoing thing, I think, for all of us that are practicing, that how much we learn from the parents that we work with. And we're open to that learning ongoing.
Yeah, that's something we really love to do at Homeopathy Hive is bring in these moms who maybe no one's listened to them before. Maybe they've just had to follow instructions from their doctors or perhaps other homeopaths. And we're saying, hey, let's feel into this together. What do
mm,
you think? Here's what I would like to do. How does this feel to you when you're dosing this? What do you feel? And they come in and they're very anxious because they don't feel like they have a voice in the process. And once you give them permission in a way, say, hey, you're involved in this. You're just, you're the primary person. You're the one who can connect. I'm seeing it from your eyes. I'm trying to feel into your child, but you're there with them every day.
mm,
If you think this should be dosed more often, less often, do it. You just give them that permission. And then the anxiety level crashes down
mm,
because they feel like, okay, all right, I know what to do now. I don't feel like I have to be searching for someone who's going to answer all of my questions. I know you're here if I need you. And I love that, 6 months, 8 months into the working together with someone, you're not getting those panic emails anymore. Instead, you're not hearing from them much. And then they might email a month later and say, oh, we had an acute and I gave those things that we talked about and everything was great. Like, wow, because month one, you're emailing every day in a panic. And it's so great once they're empowered. And then their kids move along so much more quickly because the mom's not spinning anymore.
I have always
Mm,
done that in my
Yeah.
practice as well because I just figure that I'm only one and I've got loads of clients, and the best thing I can do is empower them to help themselves because, we're not there 24/7. And I mean, I've said this before on the podcast, but one of the biggest shocks I've ever had was after we stopped recording, and very well known, well respected homeopath said to me, oh, I don't believe in those at home courses. Like if the child has an ear infection, they should call their homeopath. And I'm like, that is so weird for you to say that. Like, if it's 2 a.m. on a Saturday morning, I don't want my client calling me. I want them to be able to treat their child on the spot themselves. But I think a lot of that comes from that scarcity mentality, right? Like practitioners maybe being fearful that they're not going to get clients. So they're like, oh, no, you need to come and see me for everything and do exactly what I tell you to do. Whereas if we empower them, I mean, there's billions of people on the planet. We couldn't help all of them, even if we tried. So actually empowering them is so good for your business because they tell their friends and then, it's so anyway, I don't understand that mentality,
yeah.
but I hear what you're
And
saying.
that's also that doctor-patient kind of
Yeah,
hierarchy thing
exactly.
really
Mhm.
setting in there too.
Yeah.
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 Just before we go too far, what is Homeopathy Hive? Because we haven't like told our listeners. We're like, I mean, all of us are really excited about sharing it with them. But just tell us, what is Homeopathy Hive? We've talked about the School of Intuitive Homeopathy, and we've had Angelique on the podcast, we've had Sarah on the podcast, so people can go and listen a bit more about what they do there. But what is Homeopathy Hive?
We are a clinic that specializes in complex children and their families. So we like to see the kid first, but we also treat the parents, siblings if necessary. We are, supporting the full family. We are a group of 5 homeopaths at this point, plus 2 beautiful senior homeopaths who bring so much knowledge and mentorship to all of us. That's Sarah Valentini and Lizzie Martinez. And we are a tight-knit group. We support one another behind the scenes. We collaborate on cases when needed. We share our results. And so we've helped hundreds of kids at this point and shared so many themes and theories and understandings of what's going on in this very specific group of children who are quite complex, and these are unique cases and they require unique approach. So not only are we wanting to collaborate with parents and empower them and work on the same team and educate them, we give a lot of support to our clients in that way. But we also maybe prescribe a little bit differently than some other clinics because the kids that we see tend to need a lot of support. And while, of course, a well-chosen constitutional remedy can be beautiful for a healthy person or even a person who's struggling, these children, we're talking about maybe autistic, nonverbal children, children who have trouble with day-to-day basic activities, kids who maybe are self-harming or have a lot of rage, tantrums, anxiety, can't leave the house. These are special cases. And when we take a look at these cases, there are some themes that we see consistently, and we have so many beautiful tools to support them that we do tend to prescribe in somewhat of a complex way as well, not throwing the kitchen sink at something, but using almost a composition of remedies to support all the things that we tend to see with these types of kids. We see a lot of blocked detox pathways. We see a lot of histamine issues and MCAS. We see brain inflammation that needs general support for them to get through their days. We see latent infections or infections that are showing up front and center that need to be helped. We see ancestral trauma. We see birth trauma. And we see Wi-Fi radiation toxicity. We see all these things that can get parasites, all these things that can kind of impact a case. And so as we're working through the case, we do give a lot of support to these kids and try to, shift them in gentle ways, but also give the family the support that they need so that their days can somehow improve, in a hopefully a quick way. But, we give lots of options and kind of see what the parent wants to do as well. So Sarah, did you want to add anything to that list?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, the constitutional remedy is a beautiful thing, but when we have children with such a low level of health and immune challenges, there are some other clinics that work with kids with PANS and PANDAS that will give them a constitutional remedy. And then if the child flares or get an infection, they will tell them to go and take antibiotics. And number one, like we all, it's not ideal. If someone really needs to do that, sure, they can do that. But the thing is, we know that that has an effect on the gut. And I've seen in so many of my clients that have done that, long-term antibiotics or frequent antibiotic use, they'll either develop mast cell activation or just have a completely, yeast overgrowth and dysbiosis out of control. And we have all these amazing tools in homeopathy. So why would we not use them? And so one thing that we're all really well versed on with Homeopathy Hive is the nosodes. And so we use them a lot because we're working with immune challenged children and their families. Often it's the whole family system. So we all love the art of creating a beautiful constitutional totality remedy, but we all have this similar language, I think, between us where we understand, okay, we need to support the detox pathways. We need to kind of move someone along, or they're showing signs of a Clostridia infection or that Clostridia is at play, and we might give that nosode. I'm saying Clostridia because a client this morning actually was like, wow, there's Clostridia. And so we all, like, it's lovely when we have our team meetings and things because we all just speak the same language on that because we're all deep in it, in understanding that and working like that.
Can I quickly ask about the practicality side of it? So can anybody like book a consultation on the Hive? Like, is it a website and you just go and book an acute consultation, or is it, and because I think you've got a Mighty Networks support with it as well. How do those things tie in?
So it's homeopathyhive.com, and you can go and request to get on our wait list for an appointment. And we try to get through that as quickly as possible. But because we work so closely with each kiddo and their family that come to us, sometimes there is a bit of a wait. But we bring in that child as a full intake appointment, and we do help existing clients with acutes, but it's not specifically for acutes. But one thing that we do offer is a Mighty Network group for our clients. And the reason that we started that this year actually, was because this can be such a lonely road for moms and families. And we just, we have so many clients where we thought, gosh, if she just knew her, they would be such friends. And, we wanted to connect these parents because like Sarah was saying about the students who came into the School of Intuitive Homeopathy, they're so smart, they know their stuff and they've gone through many different healing modalities, many different therapies. They can share supportive things that they're doing, in addition to homeopathy, and they're all working the same way together to heal their kids, and they're all starting to become empowered themselves. So a way to bring them together is what we were kind of looking for. So Mighty Networks has solved that issue for us. And then we do live meetings every month. We're now doing a women's circle where we just kind of can come together and hold space for whatever people are struggling with in their healing journey. And we do flare and acute support live meetings as well. And the Hive Homeopaths rotate hosting those. So you can get, you're working with one homeopath at the Hive, but it's great to be able to hear other people's opinions too through Mighty Networks. And we all will answer questions when people post questions that way. And then we're doing also an educational monthly Q&A on a specific topic. Like Sarah just did one on how to be your child's best detective. We did one on how to muscle test, trying to encourage moms to try that. And yeah, so that's another thing that we offer.
That's amazing. So is that like a membership, like a monthly membership, or would you have had to have had a consultation at the Hive to be part of that? Or how do you?
Right. At this point, this is all for Hive clients. And so, yes, you would have needed to do an intake and become part of our practice to get that Mighty Network support.
Okay. Oh, that's amazing. That's so cool.
Mm.
Maybe just tell us a little bit more about the types of clients that you work with. So is it, and it's only children, or is it the parents as well? Or like if somebody wanted to book, like would you go, this is the type of clients that we see, we don't see those clients? Like what's the kind of criteria?
So most of the cases that come through are quite complex children. So that's what's most of the cases that land with us. And so we'll start, and it's mainly children with neuro-immune challenges. Like we see a lot of autism, PANS, PANDAS, and within that there's pathological demand avoidance and ADHD and all of those kind of diagnoses, I guess, that go alongside with that. But we also see children with, there was a bit of a big rush of children with seizures. But often these things are complicated. We have all the acronyms for all the diagnoses, but they're very kind of intertwined. We can put the big umbrella as neuro-immune challenges. So that's kind of the group of children that we see and that come to us. And then within that, we'll start to work in the family system, because one thing that we also do as a big part of the Hive is we try to understand what's happening in the family. Not just with that child, because it's a lot of pressure just to heal one child, right? Like it's like, oh, you need to heal and then we're all going to be okay. But, the whole family kind of contributes to that dynamic. And even after the child is healed, the mother can be being triggered. Her PTSD from really extreme stress can be triggered. There can be a child that's, because their nervous system might have been overwrought for so many years, another child may also be struggling. So we always kind of look globally at the whole family or the whole family system. And we do end up treating the parents, one or both, or we might treat another child. Sometimes we prescribe in the child's consult to the parent, or sometimes sometimes that parent will also have a lot of immune challenges and, certainly be in a state of stress, and then also start to realize that they may need to be working with the trauma that they experienced as a child or, in their lifetime, and even with the ancestors, because the child that presents now with the immune challenge, that has come through many generations often, and we may be looking at toxicity. Like I've had children like that are, we can go back to the grandparent who worked in a coal mine or in some kind of mine where there was toxicity, and that has come down. And we might get to the point where we need to work with that toxicity too. So yeah, so that's how we work with the whole system, really, for the whole system healing.
Mm.
And I
And
think we would all agree at the Hive that these special kids have come to us for a reason. And it's beautiful to see, you're coming in for help for your kid. And then you think, maybe I have a few things to work on as the parent as well. Maybe I'll book in a consultation and we'll, just maybe I'm having some anger issues or something. And then you get to delve into the mom's case and then help the mom realize this kid's here to heal you and your husband or your partner. They're not only here to heal you, or they're here to heal the grandparents and whatever the ancestral trauma was that that family may have had. These kids are such bright lights, and so looking at it that way too, as they're coming in to heal us all. So let's see what they have to say. Why have we had to go on this journey? What fears are they bringing up for us? Things about like not being in regular society, not going into normal schools, not, all these things that maybe bring up some anxiety for the parent. It's like, okay, let's look at that. Because maybe when the kid, when the parent kind of is able to shift and work through their trauma, then the kid's job is like, oh, okay, you got that. We don't need to present this way anymore. So it's such a beautiful intertwining, of these families, and we love to support the whole family and just try to unravel the whole thing and help them. Homeopathy is such a catalyst. It's a catalyst for being able to look within, to figure out how to heal. And it's not the only thing, but it's such a beautiful way of just starting to feel into our bodies again, because we've been brought up in these systems of like, okay, we have a symptom, we have something we're feeling, let's shut it down. And we're saying, no, let's feel into that. What is that trying to tell us? What is the message here? What is the message of this child who's throwing themselves on the floor? There's a message there. What behavior are they trying to tell us? Instead of seeing that child as a problem and, something that we need to shut that off and fix that, what are they trying to express to us? What infection are they showing us? What are they showing us about our own issues as parents? And then if you look at it that way and say, oh, they're really helping me, how can we get them better, and how can I get myself better at the same time?
And because all of you work intuitively as well, that would help you greatly. And actually, you'll see anyone listening on the or watching the video on the Rumble channel. I don't mention YouTube because I deleted my channel and I am trying to put it back, but it's taking ages. But anyway, so if you're watching the video of this on Rumble, you'll see that I'm still in the caravan, but we are actually back home after 3 months of traveling around Australia. And we've just done almost 4,000 kilometers in the last 4 days. So as we were crossing the Nullarbor, I was listening to the first 11 episodes of the podcast, the Telepathy tapes, and I cannot recommend it high enough. I think it's in the top 0.1%, so it's almost up there with like Joe Rogan, and it only started last year, which tells you a lot about how hugely viral this podcast has gone. I think it's beyond what, Kai, who created the podcast, ever could have expected. And basically, I'll give you like the little spoiler alert is it's about non-speaking children with autism and adults, non-speaking people who are non-speaking, having the ability to communicate telepathically. And I think for you ladies at Homeopathy Hive, I mean, none of this would have been new to you because I know a lot of you work in this way already. But for me, it certainly exploded my mind and made me think about the way that I practice so differently, because these children have unbelievable gifts and unbelievable access to the collective consciousness. They can just tap into all of that, and they have all these gifts to share with us. And they have been completely misunderstood as being, incapable or not intelligent or whatever words you want to use for that. But they are so unbelievably brilliant beyond anything that any of us could ever have believed. My husband and I both listened to most of the episodes together, and then some of it I just listened by myself when he was driving and really had to focus. But we were both in tears as we were listening to this podcast, both of us. Like the kids are like, "Are you all right?" We're like, "No, it's fine, it's fine." I mean, you guys have, I mean, you've listened to the telepathy tapes as well. What was that like for you? Because you're already working in this way with this incredible population. Sorry, I don't know what
Mm.
I was asking there, but basically, I just
I,
wanted to bring, I
yeah,
just wanted to
I
bring
mean,
in telepathy tapes, and also that you guys are already working in this way with this incredible subset of people.
yeah.
So, what's
I,
your feedback on
I
that?
I can say quickly, and then Sarah has some examples, I'm sure, as well. But I work with many spellers. So these are autistic kids who use spelling boards to communicate, and the parents will send me their poems or what they have written, and it's like the deepest sensation that you could get, right? And it just shows you what's in their heart. And part of the what we're trying to treat, especially for the older kids, older autistic kids who are trying to spell and communicate, a lot of times they really have trouble calming their nervous system down, calming their bodies down so that they can spell. They can communicate. Their parents can see such beautiful things from them, but they're so either not in their bodies or having a hard time sitting still enough, or being still enough to actually be able to touch the letters. And they get really easily distracted. And, so working homeopathically to try to get them in their bodies a little bit more, or help to calm all of that down so that they can communicate with their caregivers more. I also have a kid who's 5 who just started spelling. No one has ever taught him to read or write, and he can spell everything just on his own. They're such old souls, they're here for a reason. Feels like so many of them have been here before and they just know. All
Mm,
of this stuff. It's beautiful. And we work intuitively both with the parent, but we can feel into these kids. We can ask their permission to feel into them and say, how can I help you? What do you need? And set the intention in that meeting with their parent that whatever needs to come through is going to come through. Whatever you need to tell me, whatever I need to say to
Mm.
you, asking for some higher guidance to come through so that we can reach these kids because they absolutely can send us messages. And if you're open to, hearing what they are, you can really make some great progress.
Mm. And I love what the telepathy tapes has done actually for that whole community, because that idea of assuming competence. And I had one of the spellers that is a child that I see, well, she's nearly an adult now. She said, she wrote on the spelling board, you may think because my body doesn't do what I want it to do, that I don't know what's going on. And oh my gosh, every time I read her poems, like, or what she's written, I'm just, close to tears, because the depth and insight it's just mind blowing. And I think the telepathy tapes is just really bringing that to, front and center. Let's not assume that these children don't know what is happening, because they do. Their body is just operating a little differently in this world. And to really witness that as well, like from a homeopathic perspective, I know in my cases, a lot of the time the parents will come to me and they will tell me all the things that are uncomfortable for them about their child and the way their child's presenting in the world. And that's all very helpful. That's all very helpful to understand. But sometimes there's a little more about what is for the highest good of this child. It's not just about making their parent comfortable.
mm,
It's also like, what do we need to know about them? Like, what is going to be important? Like, what do they want us to know? And what's going to be best in terms of their treatment, in terms of their higher self, and what's in their highest good, and what do they want?
mm,
Like, what do they want to show us? And I'll often, we all do a process of what's called the sensation process, but it's like a meditation where we get the mother or the parent to connect with the child. And I often also in that space, I invite the child, not physically, I'm not inviting the child, but when we're in the meditation, I invite the energy of the child to come in and join us. And if there's anything that they want to share. And often, sometimes they will be speaking or giving very clear messages or signals or signs,
mm,
and it's almost, sometimes it's a little bit of decoding of what they're saying. Because when somebody's nonverbal, you're not going to hear it, oh, I want to tell you this. It's
mm,
not always in that form. It'll be in their actions or what they want to show you, or, sometimes they say things in this space, but sometimes it's just, I had one child recently who really just wanted to be like, I want to show you my work. And what their work was actually what they do in their life, in that they love sea animals and they love playing with the sea animals. But what came through was this huge connection to the ocean, to the sea animals. We have remedies from the sea animals and a lot of the sea animals and their intelligence. And remembering at one point in time, the earth was covered in ocean, in water, ancient times. And we kind of evolved from that place. And so, it's almost like decoding, oh, maybe this child, this is very simple, but maybe it needs a remedy from, a whale. And if we think about whales and how they communicate, the sounds that they make. We have a remedy from dolphin sonar that Colin Griffith and the Guild proved as well. Like those kind of remedies can be amazing for these children that are communicating on a different level, but it doesn't mean they're not communicating. So, we kind of all really look at that in the hive. We really look at what that child is trying to show us in their everyday activities.
I definitely,
And
as I was listening to the telepathy tapes, it really resonated with me how a lot of our work as homeopaths is going to be about helping these children feel their bodies or come into their bodies. And there was just the most beautiful quote that somebody said. One of the children on their spelling board said, "Your job is to get my kind of energy body back into my physical body." And even this with the hand flapping, like I have a little boy, Sarah, I've talked to you about him before, but he goes like this with his fingers in front of his face the whole time. He actually has a whole variety of different diagnoses, but it just made me realize that he's trying to like see his hands and trying to feel into his body. And the hand flapping, even like in the telepathy tapes, they were saying it's a way for them to kind of just feel their extremities. And like I just never ever could have imagined that that could be part of the picture that we need to take into account as homeopaths, is that actually these children, I mean, one of the children's telepathy tapes said that they didn't even know they had a body. So there's like this incredible consciousness that is not aware that they have a physical body at all. And so part of
Mhm.
our job as homeopaths is to help them feel their body so that they then can use something like a spelling board, so that they can communicate more clearly. Something else that came through to me as I was listening to it is, if I had that access, they talk about these libraries of information that they can just, access and have access to all of this collective consciousness. I'm like, I wouldn't want to be present in this physical world either. I'd want to be out there, like learning all this incredible knowledge that's out there. And that's the other thing I was thinking is like, do they even want to be part of this world? Maybe they're like quite happy where they are. And so maybe our job is just to help them kind of be there, because physically somebody still needs to help them poo sometimes, or somebody still needs to feed them, otherwise they will literally die if somebody doesn't look after their physical body, if they can't do it themselves. And the trauma of a parent aging and then stressing about who's going to look after their child after they pass away. So I understand this need for us to want to force them to communicate or in some way become independent. I think that is really important. But I just kind of felt like I could understand a little bit why they might be reluctant to kind of be part of our physical world when
yeah.
they have access to all this incredible, information, and the world that they live in. They talk about in the telepathy tapes, hanging out on the hill. If you were with this beautiful group of non-judgmental people that are just pure love, wouldn't you want to stay there rather than in this world where everyone's tearing each other down and there's bullying and there's so I just
Yeah.
feel that it's completely exploded my consciousness or
Yeah.
my brain or whatever to all this different way of looking at what it is that these people need. We have believed that they've needed this for X amount of time, but actually there's something so much more profound going on behind the scenes.
And it's a very delicate thing to treat, right? And on a case by case basis, we often ask the parent, do you feel that your child is in their body? And they'll know instantly, yes or no. And then if they're escaping, where are they escaping from? Is it from the crown?
Mm.
Is it from the base chakra? Where is it going? And then, Colin Griffiths and, the Guild, their remedies have been so helpful in helping us to understand how to get those kids back into their bodies, but feeling into too, we can't do it indelicately, right? because if there's pain, we don't want to bring them in, unless we've gotten ahead of that pain. And sometimes they will resist for reasons that maybe we don't understand. So we have to figure out, why aren't they wanting to be in? Can we get them in? Teaching the parent too how to do meditations to imagine that body of light, coming back into the physical body slowly, slowly. Where
Mm,
is the struggle? Where is the bump? Can we picture it coming in? Where does it get stuck? Oh, it's the stomach. Okay, what's going on in the stomach? What do we feel in there? And trying to get the parent to feel, what are they feeling? And then finding remedies that will help, match that sensation so that the child would be more willing to come into their bodies.
mm,
If that's their path, we can't force it, but feeling into how it's leaking, in what way, where are they, there are such beautiful new remedies. We use a lot of color remedies, sound remedies, crystal remedies for kids like this, which are so helpful.
I'm glad you said about that because one of the things that one of the children, the non-speakers, said that they need is certain frequencies, and they got this therapist to use a tuning fork with them. And of course, I was thinking, well, it'd be so interesting to use sound remedies. And I'm actually not surprised, Bridget, that you guys are already doing this. You're clearly like way ahead of me because that's what you specialize in, treating these children. So that's really exciting to hear that.
Yeah. And the matrodonal remedies, by the
Mm,
way, they're also very,
Yeah.
we use them so commonly. But, I love that Bridget brought up about, bringing a child safely into their body. But also, these kids have got so much to teach us if we can listen,
mm,
because it's not just like we need to fix them. It's like, actually, they've got a lot to tell and teach us. And sometimes the end game, I know I have a lot of parents who are like, I just want them to speak, or I just want them to, and that is definitely part of the process. But if we can just help them communicate, or if we can listen
mm,
and we can understand their communication style as well, and we can get the body calmed down and the gut sorted and all of those things, then it's great. But sometimes, it's like it's a matter of, I really feel like it's a matter of also us being able to listen and learn from what they
mm.
have to say so much of the time.
It's actually interesting because I have a most incredible client who is, I mean, you know, these mums, they are just warriors. Like this mother is just unbelievable, the lengths that she has gone to help her adult son. And they were some of the first people in Australia to go over to America to go learn RPM, so the rapid prompting method. And she's been doing it with him for 18 years, 18, 19 years, and he's still only doing it very minimally. And it just made me wonder that maybe we're just putting too much pressure on them to be using the letterboard, and maybe we actually just need to work harder on practicing our telepathic means of communicating with them, all of them, so that we're kind of taking the pressure off them and, we're developing that from our end. I just cannot imagine how hard it must be for them. But then,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I have so many questions, which this, episode isn't about the telepathy tapes, but and it does tie in with what you're doing. It's exploded my kind of understanding of all this, which I can see in the eyes of the two of you that you guys are like, oh yeah, we already knew all this. We've been doing that for years, which is so wonderful and also why I'm so passionate about homeopaths specializing more because then all your energy, all your courses that you do, everything goes into really getting to know a particular area very, very well, which I can see that you ladies are already doing.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's incredibly satisfying to be able to go really deep, deeper and deeper with the families that we work with, of the mothers and the children themselves. Like
Mhm.
that's, yeah, incredibly amazing. And even though we all work online, we do, I feel like, and I know Bridget would be the same, we develop such deep relationships with the families that we work
Mhm.
with. We all want to hold these families through until we get to some ease in their lives and, maybe more function or whatever. But that's something that all of us really do, like really kind of holding that whole family unit, feeling, supporting the mothers, supporting the whole
Mm,
journey.
And seeing
amazing.
them grow and develop through the process, maybe wanting one thing initially, but then going through all these layers and kind of coming to peace with how something may be never exactly normal in quotes, but seeing the beauty in that too.
Mm.
So, yeah, everybody's journey is different, and everybody, you just have to, they're all unique, but being there as support for them is such an honor.
Mm.
It is. It really is. It
And any
really.
parents listening to this who might not have listened to previous episodes that we've done with Sarah and with Angelica Lemke, there is this incredible book that Angelica wrote called Healing Complex Children with Homeopathy, which has been mind blowing for so many parents and empowering for them to be able to learn to heal their children themselves. And Bridget, you actually had a big hand in that book as well. Do you want to share a bit of your part in that?
Well, just as a student of hers, seeing how she empowered moms and all of this amazing information that she had about specifically behavioral signs of infections that I thought was so interesting and something that I had not heard before. And seeing the volumes of work that she had put together and had this very kind of small scale at the point, a school that she was running, and not very many people had access to this. And my career before this was as a writer and editor, and I contacted her very early on in the course and said, I would love to put a book together for you if you ever wanted to do that. And she's here's all my stuff. So I spent 2 years putting all of it into a format that I really hoped would be understandable to the general population, to a mother, because homeopathy can be so heady and intellectual and complicated and confusing. And we thought, let's just kind of organize this in such a way that a parent could read this and say, oh, I see my kid in this remedy, and encourage them to go ahead and try it. So, yeah, we developed that material and tried to put it out there in a way that was understandable for people. And the response has been really gratifying for the whole group and the whole school too. It's been wonderful to share that with people and have them get on a consult with you. And, it seems like about, I don't know, at least 60% of the time people will say, I have the book and I've read the whole thing cover to cover 3 times, and here's what I think. And it's like, yes, great. Let's hear what you think. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
definitely very, very well laid out and very easily digestible and just, yeah, I love a well laid out book. I just love when it's
Yeah, me
easy to
too.
access the information. You have done an excellent, excellent job.
And
Really.
that index is very helpful. You got to have a good index in books like this. So yeah, it's
It's
great.
very, very important. Absolutely. And actually, there's a lot of homeopathy books that don't have good indexes, which is such a shame because it can be
So
so hard to,
frustrating.
yeah, it is very frustrating. What are your plans for the future, ladies? Like for the Hive and for School of Intuitive Homeopathy, and with all the your mighty networks and all your things that you are doing? Have you got plans for the future, or where do you see this heading in the years to come?
Well, Bridget, I mean, that's a big question. Bridget and I have talked about gathering data from our cases collectively, which, is a big job. But ideally, like we would do that and document what we're seeing, ideally. And we take interns from the School of Intuitive Homeopathy. So we really, I mean, we want more people to understand. We are busy, we have a wait list, which we love ongoing working with these families, but there's a lot of families to help. So we are really interested in helping practitioners to work really effectively. And, I mean, I've told my story many, many times, but, as a classically trained homeopath and taking my son to a classically trained homeopath when he had PANS was limiting. And, it wasn't until I kind of really went into this stuff that I felt like, oh, this is possible. And so, education, spreading the word. We want more homeopaths or even parents that want to be homeopaths learn how to work in a way that we do and that's really effective.
Amazing. And we haven't mentioned your podcast yet. Do you want to have a chat about that?
Well, we have the Intuitive Homeopathy podcast where we talk about all things to do with intuition and working with children, really. That's the focus of what we do there. And you can find that on Spotify or all the podcast platforms as well. And there's resources on the website too. We do have a webinar as well on working
Mhm.
with complex children on the website too, which practitioners can watch that one. And hopefully
Mhm.
we'll have more one day.
Yeah, we have one on detox pathways that parents have found really helpful. That's on our website as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Any
So
do
it's
you, do
that,
you want to just do you want to mention just all your socials and all the websites and all the places where people can get hold of you?
so we haven't developed the Homeopathy Hive Instagram yet, perhaps that will be a big job. We are very busy seeing our clients, but you can go to the website, homeopathyhive.com. There is an Instagram page for the School of Intuitive Homeopathy, which with some resources.
And your
I
own
have some.
Instagram page, your
Yeah.
Family Apothecary Instagram page. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's resources on that. But yeah, I think that in terms of like educating other practitioners, like we do have other groups as well that are homeopathic practitioners that want, to kind of tap into what we do too.
Yeah, rather than posting on Instagram, I feel like we're spending a lot of time mentoring cases.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
trying to teach others. So we're internalized in that way at this moment and working so closely with our clients.
But other homeopaths who want to learn about working with complex cases, you can study through the School of Intuitive Homeopathy. There's a lot going on there that you can learn more, and then, just reach out, tap into us, we're ever evolving, really.
Amazing. Ladies, I just want to check if there's any final things that we need to mention that we might have missed. No? Okay. Well, it was lovely to hang out with both of you. Thank you so much. And thank you for the amazing, brave, hard work that you're doing to help these incredible mamas and their children and the families, and that we can all benefit from your teaching as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
You so
Virginia.
much.
Yeah.
Chat soon.